In this module, we will create a quiz feature and add it to the app. Users will be presented with a quiz that is selected at random. The first thing we will do is set up the questions that will be presented in the quiz. The quiz will use a hard-coded data file to provide the questions and answers. Then we will create the question component that will be used to display the questions that are presented in the quiz. Once we have the question component, we can create the quiz component. This quiz component will host all of the questions in the flat list component. The last component we will build for the quiz feature is the quiz finish component. This will provide the score of the quiz and summarize how many questions were missed. This will give you an idea of what the quiz will look like once it's added to your project. Once this module is complete, you will have a functioning quiz in your app. The data for the quiz will be hard-coded into a file. In the app folder, create a folder named Data. Then in this folder, create a file named quizquestions.js. This quiz is actually 3 different quizzes that will randomly be selected when a user navigates to the quiz page. The first thing we will do in the quizquestions.js file is add the object that will hold the arrays for the general quiz. Here we add the export keyword in line with the variable. This is acceptable, and I just prefer to add my exports at the end of the file. Also bear in mind that you can only have one default export in your file. With just the export keyword, you can have multiple named exports in a file. Then we add an array that will hold the title. We will use this to add the title to a label. Then we add a second array for the questions. This array will hold the objects we will use to populate our questions. These objects will have a question and 4 answers. They will also have the correct answer. This will in turn allow us to register a correct or incorrect answer. Then we have a key, which is a unique identifier for the question. We will be using a flat list to display the quiz, so we will be using the key for the key extractor prop. We will add 3 more questions to this array. These questions are in the same format as the first question, but you will notice we have changed which answer is correct in each question. Then we can add another object for the next quiz. While the first quiz was a general one, this quiz will be focused on HTML. First, we add the array for the title. Then we add the questions array. The questions follow the same format with the correct answer specified. This quiz will have 7 questions. I made each quiz a different number of questions on purpose. This is so we have to account for them when we calculate how much a missed answer will cost. The penalty for a missed question will be based on the number of questions in the quiz. The penalty for missed questions will be calculated in the quiz component. Then the final quiz we add will be for JavaScript. Again, we first add the title array, and after that we add the questions array. This quiz will contain 5 questions. The keys for each quiz follows the same format, and we just changed the trailing letter for each quiz. This is not necessary but helps determine what quiz the question belongs to. To ensure you have your quizquestions.js file correct, make sure you download the project files for the course. Now that we have the quiz questions data file set up, in the next clip we will build the questions component. In the last clip, we created the data file that will contain the questions for our quiz. In this clip, we will add the question component that will display each individual question. This component will not be added to routing as it will be displayed by the quiz component. As a result, we will add this file in the components folder. In the components folder, create a file named questions.js. The first thing we will do in this file is import useState from React. Then we will import stylesheet, text, view, and touchable highlight from React Native. In the question component, we pass in the props as an argument. We will initialize a state variable named selected. This will track whether or not a user has selected an answer for this question. We will initialize this variable with a Boolean set to false. Then we initialize another state variable named correct. This will track if a user has correctly answered the question. It will also be initialized with a Boolean set to false. Next, we add a function named chooseAnswer. Of course, based on the name, it is safe to assume this will be the function used to choose an answer. We will pass the answer that was selected to this function. First, we will set the penalty for a missed question. This will be stored in the worth prop that we pass to this component. Then we add a conditional that checks if the answer that was selected matches the correct answer prop. This prop will match the correct answer provided by the quiz question data file. If this answer matches, we will first set selected to true to indicate this question has been answered. Then we will set the correct state variable to true, which indicates the question has been answered correctly. The last thing we will do for a correct answer is update the score with the function. Now, something interesting about this function is that it will be provided by a prop. This function will update the total score as well as change the question to indicate whether or not it has been answered correctly. Note that the score is updated with 0, so there will be no change to the score. If the answer selected does not match the correct answer, we will set the selected state variable to true and update the score. This time, however, we will update the score with the value of the worth prop, which is the penalty for a missed question. Then we will wrap everything in a view component. We will also use conditional rendering to display the question in the correct way, depending on if it has been answered correctly or incorrectly. If the selected state variable is false, this is how the question will be displayed. This is how the question will appear when it has not been answered. Then we will wrap this in another view component. Next, we will add a text component. This will display the actual question. The question is provided by the question prop. After that, we add a touchable highlight that wraps a text component. The onPress prop will use the choose_answer function. Note that the argument passed to this function reflects the answer. This is how we will determine if the answer is correct or not. The text component this wraps will use the answer_one prop, which matches the argument provided to the choose_answer function. After that, we will add 3 more touchable highlights. These will reflect the possible answers in the quiz. For this second touchable highlight, we will use answer2 for the choose_answer method. We will also use the answer2 prop for the text component. The third touchable highlight will use answer3 with the choose_answer method and as the prop for the text component. And the fourth touchable highlight will use answer4. If an answer has been selected and the answer is correct, this is what will be rendered. We will also wrap this in a view component. When the question is selected, we will change the background color. We will also disable the answers so you cannot select a different one. The question will still be provided in the text component, and the answers will also be added in the text component without an onPress prop. As a result, users taking the quiz will no longer be able to select an answer. Then the last text component we add will indicate the answer is correct. If the answer has been selected but is not correct, this is what will be rendered. Again, we wrap this in a view component, and the questions and answers will all be added inside text components. Again, they will not use the onPress prop. The last text component we add will indicate the answer is incorrect. After that, we can add the style object. In the styles for the container, we set flex to 1 and add some padding to the top. Then in the correct container styles, we set the flex to 1, add some padding to the top, and change the background color. This style is for the view that will be displayed when the answer is correct. Then the wrong container styles are mostly the same as the correct container styles, except the color is different. This background color will be set to a shade of red, indicating an incorrect answer. Then in the styles for the question text, we set flex to 2, add some padding on all sides, and a font size of 20. Then finally in the styles for the answer text, we set flex to 2, padding to 15, and a font size of 20. We also center align the text. Then the last thing we will do in this file is export the question component. Now that the question component is finished, in the next clip we will add the quiz component. In this clip, we will add the quiz component. This will list all of the questions in the quiz. It will also provide the data for the quiz, as well as update the score. In the Views folder, create a file named quiz.js. The first thing we will do is import useState and useEffect from React. Then we will import StyleSheet, Text, View, FlatList, and Touchable Highlight from React Native. After that, we import the data from the quizquestions.js file. Then the last import we add will be for the question component. When we add the quiz component, we will use the navigation prop. This, of course, will give us access to the navigate method. We are going to initialize a lot of state variables, and in a production application, we might use something like Redux to manage state. To avoid adding the complexity of an additional library, we will stick with the useState hook. First, we initialize the quest loaded state variable. This will indicate whether or not the questions are loaded. It is initialized with a Boolean set to false. Then we set the total score state variable to 100. The quiz will start at 100 and deduct for any incorrect answers. The completed quiz variable will determine if the quiz has been completed. This is also a Boolean set to false. The quest list state variable will be used to store the data for the selected quiz. This will be set to an empty array. Following that, the number of questions state variable will be used to track the number of questions in the quiz. Remember, each quiz has a different number of questions. This affects the penalty for each missed question. In the meantime, we will set this variable to 0. Then we add a variable for tracking the number of incorrect answers that have been provided. This is set to 0. And after that, we add a variable for the number of questions answered. This is set to 1 as we will be starting from the first question when this value is incremented. If we set it to 0, we would never get to the end of the selected quiz. Then we initialize the question worth state variable. This is for the amount that will be penalized for an incorrect answer. As we know, this will be different depending on the quiz. We will initially set this to 0. We will calculate this once a quiz is selected. The last state variable we add will be for the quiz that is selected. This will be used for the title of the quiz. We will initialize this to an empty string. Now, since we are using a local array, we should be able to load the data without useEffect. In our case, however, the array we are going to use is selected randomly. This selection will cause some delay, so we will get some errors. The best way for us to solve this will be to use an async function. This will be similar to how we retrieve the data for the blog using fetch. Async functions are a better way to work with promises versus chaining callback methods. The fetch method returns a promise, so in order to use an async function, we will create a promise of our own. We use the new keyword with promise to create a new promise object. Resolve is the method we will use to return any data that is provided by this promise. Reject can be used for any errors that are encountered. The first thing we need to do is select one of the quiz objects. We will use an array that contains all of them. In order to select the quiz, we use the mathRandom function times the length of the quizzes array. We then use mathFloor to round down the result. This will select one of the items in the array. After that, we set the choice variable to the selected object, and then we resolve the choice, which will return the selected quiz object from the promise. Previously, we had to use chained-in callbacks to consume a promise. With async functions, we just need to use the await keyword. First, we grab the chosen quiz data using await. The great thing is that we can have a series of await statements. As a result, we can grab the title from the data provided by the chosen quiz object. We will also grab the questions array from the chosen quiz, and then we grab the length of the quiz content array. After that, we will set the quiz title state variable. Await statements don't really work with setting state, so it's better to grab the data and assign it to a variable. After the await statements have processed, we can assign them to the appropriate state variable. We will also set the quest list state variable to the quiz content variable. Now in the question worth variable, we will use the question count to calculate the value of a missed question. We do this by dividing 100 by the number of questions. We use the mathFloor function to round down to the nearest integer. Then we set the number of questions. And finally, we set the quest loaded variable to true. This indicates the question data is loaded and the quiz can be displayed. Then we can add the useEffect hook. This will execute the setup quiz function that we just added. After that, we can add the update score function. This is the function that will be provided as a prop to the questions component. If we look at the questions component, we can see that the choseAnswer function uses the update score function in 2 places. As a result, the actual update score function in the quiz.js file has the penalty as an argument. First, we will set a temporary score using the total score. This, of course, will initially be set to 100. Then we set the missed variable to the incorrect state variable. This is initially set to 0. Then we set the questions total to the number of questions state variable. And then finally, we set the questions done variable to the question answered state variable. All 4 of these variables we just added are temporary variables to hold the current value of all the state variables. This is because we will be making some changes to these state variables. In the setTotalScore function, we will subtract the penalty amount from the temp score. This will set the current score of the quiz. If the answer is correct, no penalty will be applied and the score will still be the same. If the answer is incorrect, the penalty will be subtracted from the total score and updated to reflect the missed question. We also need to track the number of missed questions. We will use a conditional to check if the penalty is true or false. In terms of numerals, 0 is considered false, any other number is true. In this case, if there is a penalty amount for a missed question, it will increment the incorrect state variable. We do this by using the missed variable, which holds the current value of the incorrect state variable. If the penalty amount is 0, which indicates a correct answer, then the current value of the incorrect state variable is used. This again uses the missed variable. We need to track the amount of questions answered so we can detect when the quiz is complete. We do this by incrementing the questions done variable by 1. Questions done contains the current value of the questions answered state variable. The last thing we will do in this function is check whether or not the quiz is done. We do this by checking if the questions answered state variable is equal to the questions total. If it is, the completed quiz variable will be set to true. This will enable a button that allows users to finish the quiz and see how they did. After that, we add the finish quiz function. All we will do is use the navigate method to go to the quiz finish route. The quiz finish component will display some information about the total score and the number of questions missed. The total score, number of missed questions, and the number of questions in the quiz will be passed along as a route param. Now that we have added the functions this component will need, in the next clip we will complete the quiz component. In this clip, we will finish up the quiz component. Go to the quiz.js file in the views folder. The first thing we will add in the return statement is a view component to wrap everything. Then we add a text component to hold the selected quiz title. After that, we will add the view that will be rendered when the questions are loaded. When the quest loaded state variable is set to true, this will be rendered. The quiz will be a list of questions, so we will use the flat list component. In the key extractor, we will use the key that we added to each question. Then the data will be bound to the quest list state variable. For the render item, we will use the question component. We just need to provide the questions and answers as props. First, we add the question prop. Then we add the props for answers 1 through 4. Each prop will correspond to the questions provided by the array. Then we add the prop that will allow verification that the answer is correct. We of course will use this to match with the answer that is selected. Then we add the score update prop that will use the update score method that we added above. Then finally, we add the worth prop, which will be the value of an incorrect question. We use the question worth state variable to set the worth prop. When the quiz is completed, we will set the completed quiz prop to true. When we do, this block will be rendered beneath the quiz. This will contain a touchable highlight component. The touchable highlight will contain a text component that says touch to finish. This will use the finish quiz function when it is tapped. Before the quiz is finished, we will display a message in place of the touch to finish message. This will be displayed as long as the completed quiz state variable is false. This will just have a touchable highlight that says answer all the questions. The touchable highlight does not have an on-press prop and will not do anything when tapped. Then finally, we will add the message that is displayed as the component is loaded. This will be a text component that says loading. Then finally, we add the style object. In the container style, we set the flex to 1 and add some padding to the top. The disabled style is for the touchable highlight that will display the message to answer all the questions. We will align the items in the center, justify the content in the center, set the background color, and set the height. Then we add the styles for the button that says touch to finish. The only difference from the disabled style is the background color. After that, we can export the quiz component. Now that we have finished the quiz component, in the next clip, we will add the quiz finish component. In this clip, we will add the quiz finish page. This will be displayed once the quiz is completed. In the views folder, create a file named quizfinish.js. The only import we will have in this file is for style sheet, text, view, and touchable highlight. In the quiz finish component, we will include the route and navigation prop. The first thing we will do in the quiz finish component is grab the route params we will be passing when we navigate to this route. After that, the exit quiz function will simply navigate to the home page. Once the user is done reviewing the quiz, there will be a button that exits the quiz. That button will execute this function. Then we add a view component to wrap everything. We use the information that was passed in the route param to display the score. After that, a message is displayed that shows the number of questions missed. It also explains how many questions in total were on the quiz. This uses the other two route params that we passed in to display this. The last thing we will add is a touchable highlight. The onPress prop uses the exit quiz function. As a result, tapping this button will exit the quiz. The exit quiz function will navigate to the home page when this button is tapped. Then the last thing we add is the style object. The container styles will set the flex to 1, add some padding to the top, align item set to center, and justify content set to center. Then in the styles for the button, we align item center, justify content center, and set the height to 10%. After that, we can export the quiz finish component. Go ahead and save your project. In the next clip, we will add the quiz feature to the app. In this clip, we will make the quiz feature available in the app. The first thing we need to do is go to the app.js file. The first thing we will do is import the quiz component. Then after that, we import the quiz finish component. Then we add a route for the quiz component. The name quiz will be used for this route, and the quiz component will be rendered for this route. Since we don't need a title but want the back button, we use an empty string in the title option. And after that, we add the quiz finish route. This will be the name of this route, as well as the component that will be rendered for this route. Since we will have a button to navigate away from this page, we don't need the header's back button. As a result, we are going to set the header shown to false. This will prevent the default header from being displayed on this page. After that, let's go to the menu.js file. All we will do here is make sure the button for the quiz uses quiz as the route. After that, save the project. Now that we have added the quiz feature to the app, in the next clip, we will demo the quiz. In this clip, we will demo the quiz feature that we just added. When we launch the app, we will first navigate to the quiz and verify it works. Then we will verify that a random quiz is selected. Once we are sure a random quiz is selected every time, we can then work through the quiz. We will make sure the questions respond correctly when selected. After that, we will verify that the quiz finish page accurately displays the results of the quiz. First, we need to launch Android Studio. Start up the Android Virtual Device Manager and launch the emulator. After that, navigate to your project folder in the terminal. Then launch the app by using the React Native Start command. Leave this running and launch a second terminal. Navigate to the project folder in this second terminal window. Then run the React Native Run Android command. After a moment, the app will launch on the emulator. Once the app launches, click on the quiz button. This should navigate to the quiz. A random quiz should be selected. If we tap the back button, we will navigate back to the home page. If you go back to the quiz, another quiz should be selected. If you happen to get the same quiz as the first time, go back and forth again. This verifies the quiz is selected at random. After that, let's answer all the questions in a quiz. When you get the correct answer, the question should turn green. An incorrect answer should turn red. Answer all the questions in the quiz the best you can. The questions and answers are not perfect, but they should be relatively easy to answer. When you answer all the questions, the touch to finish message should be displayed. Tap this to finish the quiz. This should navigate to the quiz finish page. This should display the score of the quiz based on the number of questions that were answered correctly. It should also reflect how many questions you missed. Now, this quiz is by no means perfect, but it is a good prototype to start with. The good thing is that the data is decoupled from the actual quiz. All we have to do is follow the correct format for the data file. Tap the Finish Quiz button to complete the quiz and navigate back to the home page. Coming up in the next module, we will add the video feature.